Hello, bonjour, bienvenue, and welcome. Over the course of several videos, we've seen how Excel can provide many tools for the analysis of large data sets. I've presented several different functions for performing table queries as well as logic functions in other videos. And in this module, we'll examine the use of conditional formatting using some presets and also some logic functions. And taken together, this lets us perform logical tests on data that result in formatting changes that allow for rapid visual identification. To illustrate how to apply conditional formatting, I'll use a spreadsheet containing fictitious student enrollment data. I've frozen the panes to keep the header row always visible and to keep the leftmost column with the unique identifier always visible. Now, if we wanted to use conditional formatting to visualize the relative age of the students in this fictitious list, we could use one of the built-in conditional formatting presets to apply a color gradient to the birth date data. So to do this, we would select the data in the birth date column by selecting cell O2, then typing Control-Shift down arrow. And then on the home menu, we select conditional formatting and a color scheme. Now we pick a color gradient scheme that means something to us. For example, if I make the highest dates green, that will make the youngest students the greenest, and that makes intuitive sense to me. Now it's easy to see which students are the oldest and which are the youngest, without even sorting the data range by birth date. In another tutorial, we used formulas to identify which students have a GPA greater than or equal to 8 to consider eligibility for a fictitious scholarship. And we can use conditional formatting to do the same thing. First, we select the cells to which the formatting will be applied. In this case, by clicking K2 and selecting the entire column by typing Control-Shift down arrow. Now we click on Conditional Formatting, a Highlight Cells rule, and we want greater than or equal to, so we'll skip over greater than and make an additional rule. Here we're going to format cells that contain a cell value that is greater than or equal to 8. And the formatting that we'll apply will be to format those cells by filling them with light green and making the font color dark green. Okay. So now we can easily identify visually which values are greater than or equal to 8. Now let's try something a little more complex. Let's say we want to use conditional formatting to identify students that are in a specific program and have a GPA below a certain value. So first we select the cells to which the formatting will be applied. In this case, let's choose the cells in column F. So I click on F2, type Control-Shift down arrow, and then the conditional formatting button. Now we're going to make a new rule, and we're going to use a formula to determine which cells to format. The formula that we're going to use will include the AND function to indicate two criteria, both of which must be met for the formatting to be applied. So we type equals and bracket, and for the first criterion, let's type that F2 must equal droit civil, just to pick a random program, and we're going to make sure to leave the reference relative. Then we type comma, and the second criterion, namely that K2, relative reference, must be less than 7. Close bracket to complete the function. Now let's color those cells as red text and orange cell fill. Now you can see that there are some instances where droit civil is not colored because the GPA is not less than 7. And it's only cases where a student in droit civil also had a GPA of less than 7 that the formatting was applied. In a final example, let's use the logical function OR in the context of conditional formatting. For example, let's format the cells in column L to identify students that are registered either in science or in engineering, which is génie in French. So first we select the cells to be formatted. Let's say column L. So I click on L2 and I type Control-Shift down arrow to select the entire column. Then we click Conditional Formatting. New rule. We're going to use a formula to determine which cells to format. And in the formula bar, we're going to use the OR function to indicate two criteria, either of which can be met in order for the formatting to be applied. For the first, let's type L2 equals science, and for the second one, we'll type L2 equals génie. Now let's format those cells by filling the cell with light yellow and making the font dark yellow and bold. When we close the splash box and apply the formatting, now we can see that all cases that are either science or génie have been formatted in a way that lets us identify them easily. Please note that the formatting is a feature of the content of the cell and not a feature of the cell's position. So if we were to sort the entire data range on the basis of GPA, as we've done before, so I'm going to click on A1, Control-Shift down arrow, Control-Shift right arrow to select the entire data range. We navigate to Data and Sort. We confirm that this table has headers. We're going to sort by cumulative GPA, the values from largest to smallest. And now we can see that all of the rules we created for conditional formatting still apply. The formatting follows the cells as the records are arranged in a different order. By applying several different conditional formatting rules, it makes it easy to visually identify records that satisfy several different criteria. For example, all the students that are either in science or engineering, because they're yellow in column L, and also have a GPA of 8 or higher because they're green in column K.